Today on Things That Matter, I'm interviewing Carl Westerlund, and Carl has served with us here at Calvary Costa Mesa for many years. For 26 years, he directed our School of Ministry. He's got some great thoughts, so stay tuned. Hi, and welcome to this episode of Things That Matter. I'm Brian Brodersen, and I'm delighted to have in the studio today with me Carl Westerlund.
Hey, good to be here.
And Carl is one of our pastors here at Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa, and has been on staff here since 1987. Right?
87. Almost, I'm in my 30th year.
Yeah,
yes.
That's amazing. And so, Carl, you graduated from Dallas Theological Seminary in 1968.
Yes.
Before many of our viewers were probably born.
Yes. I keep talking to people, and especially working with some young guys, and you weren't even born when I came on staff here. You know, I mean.
Right. Yes. So, from your graduation in 68, all the way through till you came on staff here, you pastored three different churches.
I pastored three different churches. Yes, the first one, Silver Acres Community Church, was 3 miles from where we're sitting.
That's amazing.
And so I was there from 68 to 73.
Yeah.
And we were right across the street from one of Calvary Chapel's house ministries. It was the greenhouse, which became the House of Psalms.
Yeah.
And so I would come with them to the tent.
Yeah.
And so
you
Calvary
visited
Chapel
the tent. You were a pastor.
I was
visiting the tent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I visited the little chapel over in Greenville.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And then from 1973 to 1984, I was in Julian and pastored in a lovely, beautiful place.
Up in the mountains in San Diego County. Yeah.
Main Street was at 4,200 feet. 4,200 feet. And then we went to Grand Junction, Colorado, and I pastored there for 3 years.
Yeah. Wow. And during your time here, for 26 of those years, you led the School of Ministry.
Yes.
In which approximately 800 guys got ministry training.
Well, someone counted that.
Somebody counted that. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if they were speaking evangelistically, but they got up pictures and lists and figured it out.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I mean, recently you transitioned on from that, but I mean, we all just felt, wow, what a legacy to have been able to do that.
Well, I felt so privileged to do that. Yeah. It was a great ride.
Yeah.
Just did it. But now it comes to a point in life where you think it's time to pass the torch.
Yeah.
You can't keep doing this forever. The last 3 years, I've been thinking, what if I drop dead in the middle of the semester? What does everyone do then? This is all built around me. So I thought it was time to make some changes.
Not everybody thinks that way.
They don't.
Some people think they're never going to drop dead.
Oh, yes, right.
You know what I mean? They're not thinking about the future.
Yes, but right.
We'll talk about that in a minute. So I wanted to, just talk about a couple of things that you and I have talked about over the years, just some of your perspective on things that I think is very valuable and I think can be very helpful for our listeners, for people in ministry. I look at you as a person who has a lot of hands-on experience, obviously, with having pastored your own churches, with having done your seminary education, and then, of course, with all of these guys that you worked with over these, 26 years. And many of those guys went out and planted churches.
They're all over the world.
Yeah, they're pastoring churches today. A lot of the other guys, the guys that didn't go plant churches, usually would go back to maybe their home church and kind of come in as an assistant pastor or whatever the case. But you and I have had this conversation a few times, and I think it's a valuable one. And it's the conversation about kind of the life of a church, there's a certain point where a church sort of peaks in a sense, and then unless there's some changes that are made, it kind of can start to decline.
Well, even with changes.
Okay.
Ordinarily,
talk about that.
what happens.
Yeah.
Well, some of those who have done research on this feel most churches have a 30 to a 40-year lifespan of really effective, where they haven't moved into dementia, getting old.
Yeah.
But the churches start young, and then they kind of crest, and then they gradually move into more of a maintenance mode. Can we keep the roof repaired and all of those important kind of things.
Yeah.
And gradually churches die. Unfortunately, for some of them, there's no funeral.
Yeah.
Because they just try to hang on forever and ever.
Yeah.
And sometimes they have resources and buildings and everything that could have new life. Yeah. So, and I believe that it's at that crest, at the peak there, where it's just like in life, that just as people have babies when they're younger, not too many at 60 are still having babies, It's at that age, 20s, 30s, into the 40s maybe, that churches need to be having babies.
Yeah.
They need to be planting churches. Yeah.
So you feel like there are definitely things that you can do to increase your longevity in a sense. I mean, like you said, there's always going to be, the natural course of events is that, a church is going to age and so forth. But you can increase your longevity in a sense if you start thinking in terms of how do we, take this blessing here and spread it around. Kind of.
Yes, well, I think a big thing is planting churches.
Yeah.
And I have been saying for some time that our older Calvary Chapels need to be planting new churches right up against the bellies of the old ones. I mean, they don't need to go across the world where they're not competition, whatever. Yeah. They need to be planting them right where they are.
Yeah.
And
so that there are going to be some people that absolutely don't like that.
Well,
so develop your reasoning on that a little bit more.
Well, I'm a farm boy. I grew up on a farm, and so you just kind of accept things the way they are, and that's the way it is. It's just like that.
Yeah.
And a big part of it is the leadership ages.
Yeah.
You find churches. A lot of times, the people that begin the church, and I often say the ones that start the church usually aren't there 5 years down the road. Mm-hmm. There are people that their thing is starting something. Once it's started, there's no more excitement, so they move on and do something else, maybe start something else. But those that stick with the church, they age.
Yeah. And this has been, our model, of course, as Calvary Chapel is, we do have a few guys that are sort of the starters. I've known some guys that have done that. Started 4 or 5 churches, never really settled. Other guys came in, and then, eventually they kind of do settle. But our model has, for Calvary Chapel, has pretty much been, if you start it, you stay, sort of, right?
Yeah.
And then inevitably you age, so you've got to do something there if you want to continue to see vibrancy. You've got to.
Well, I'm not just thinking of the pastor as the leader. I'm thinking of the board, the people leading the church. A lot of times they age. Now, I think we're blessed with our board here. So many of these guys were my friends even before they came on the board. Yeah. But they're young in their thinking.
Yeah.
They're very young in their thinking.
They're good men.
Yeah.
Now, what's the advantage of, like you said, planting churches right up against the belly of the mother church or whatever? Do you see that as the kind of a thing where there's a relational thing there? There's a relationship. We're doing this because we're relational on this. And
if the mother church is healthy, it will be advantageous to the mother church to do that.
Yeah.
It will help them. So often people have been in leadership for so many years, and they're almost in a rut with what they're doing with it.
Yeah.
If I say we need to take the leadership and use them to plant new churches, this gives the opportunity for new leadership to rise up and take their places.
Yeah.
And
so the leadership meaning here's the church, the pastoral staff. Take guys from there.
Well, I'm not just thinking of the pastoral staff. I'm thinking board people, probably children's ministry people.
Yeah.
There are different roles of leadership.
Sure.
And
but you're seeing the leadership as coming from sort of the mother church to go out.
And if it's close by, they can do that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they don't have to do everything. They can do Easter services together or something like that.
Yeah.
They can do joint things.
Sure.
And it helps the mother church because the new fledgling group is not able to provide for all the needs of the people.
Yeah.
So people go back to the big church, and some of them are new people in that, but they have special need. Maybe the mother church has a school, and they want their kids to go to the school. Yeah. So there's kind of a rotation here that goes on, and it's a very healthy one.
Yeah. But you think the church, let's say the church plant, needs to be independent in the sense that it's not governed by the...
Exactly. Yeah, sure. They are independent, but at the same time, if they should have a good relationship with each other. And actually, normally, my observation with the new church plants are that they start with a little younger crowd.
Yeah.
Unless you're moving into a senior citizens community, then that's hard to do. But it's,
Yeah, right. So you're at an age now where you've had all of these years of ministry experience, and you're still ministering. You're still
I'm still here.
You're still here. You're still doing.
They still let me stay. I'm so delighted.
So as you look around at the, kind of just the world, the church world, pastors, leadership, what, if there's one thing that you feel very passionate about, like, man, this is what we need right now. What is there one thing that stands out to you?
Well, I believe the big thing is we need men who are controlled by the Holy Spirit. We find that our churches have gotten so caught up in programs and demographics and things and budgets and buildings, but that's not where it's at. It's with men who know God and are tuned into the Holy Spirit and can speak for God.
So okay, flesh that out a little bit. What does that look like? A guy who's, because, lots of people would say, well, I'm a guy full of the Holy Spirit. So when you say that, what are you thinking of specifically? How are you going to identify that when you look at somebody and go, that guy's being led by the Spirit right there?
Well, I think a lot of it will be in choices that are made. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the choices are not what you would expect them to make, but they're tuned into God.
Yeah.
Now, the definition I use of faith is hearing God speak and responding to Him with attitudes of dependence on Him and actions of obedience to Him. Mm-hmm. My students have all learned that definition, because...
Attitudes of dependence.
And actions of obedience.
Yeah.
Okay?
Good.
And so faith is not something we crank up inside of us, because church planters must be men of faith if they're going to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
So it's not faith in themselves.
Yeah.
It's being tuned into the Lord and letting Him just give the direction and the sense.
Yeah. And I like what you said. When a person's being led by the Spirit, sometimes they're going to do things that don't seem
they don't seem smart
to the onlooker. They shouldn't be going in that direction. But but don't you think that part of what hinders the progress or quenches the Spirit is when you, and I hate to use the cliche of putting God in a box, but that's really what you end up doing, right? When you think, okay, we've got it all figured out, and you're not thinking at all that there's going to be something that's just completely different that the Lord's going to direct us in.
And that's where we've got to listen.
Yeah.
We've got to hear His voice.
Yeah.
Because, and that's the whole faith life.
Yeah.
We're responding to the Father.
Yeah. And you and me, as we think about the future, as we try to help, guys, maybe younger guys, for example, we have to remember that, God did it a certain way with us, but He might do it a different way with them. And this is where things oftentimes get difficult, because the older generation seems to think that it has to be done the way we did it. And the younger generation is saying, well, we think the Lord is wanting us to do it this way. And that's where the challenge really comes in.
Well, I keep saying that because I'm so entrenched in Calvary Chapel. Is there life outside of Calvary Chapel? But one of my big concerns these last few years has been the demographic, the culture of Calvary Chapel has been the baby boomer culture.
Yeah.
Baby boomers are now all past 50.
Yes. Yes.
They're past 50. So, and a lot of this has to do with style, not core values.
Yeah.
But the style, the way we do things.
But that matters. The way you do things matter.
It certainly matters if you're going to reach the generation you want to reach.
Right.
And so sometimes the older generation need to loosen up on their... They want things the way they want. They want the kind of music they want.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's a godly attitude.
Yeah.
The godly attitude would be an attitude that wants to pass it on.
Yeah.
And is godliness, in part, is being concerned about others rather than being concerned about self.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, one of the things I love about you and Barbara, your wife, is that you're both, you're young at heart still. And, we've had some challenges, obviously, in our transition time here at Costa Mesa. And sometimes it'll be, your generation of folks that are kind of upset about this change or that change. And I always love the way you've kind of come in and just said, no, come on, get over this, And I mean, I can say it and they just, well, of course you say it because, you're younger. But when somebody like you says it, I think it carries some more weight.
Well, I don't, sometimes people need perspective.
Yeah.
We get so entrenched in our way of thinking and doing things that sometimes we need to be just stirred up a little bit.
And that happens from generation to generation. It's nothing new.
No, it's nothing new.
And so we got to recognize that I think there was a time in the life of Calvary Chapel, I know I thought this way, and I think many of my peers did, that, tradition was something that everybody else had a problem with. Everybody else got caught in tradition, but man, we will never do that. But that's a mistaken notion because, of course, we're all vulnerable to that.
Yeah, we certainly are. I mean, every generation establishes its own traditions.
Yeah.
And Calvary Chapel has a lot of tradition today.
Yeah.
And I love the traditions.
Yeah.
I mean, I even love the old,
Yeah.
But I keep thinking, we've got to be thinking how we're going to reach another generation.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, though. It's really simply by being led by the Spirit. God knows what He wants to do. He knows how He wants to do it. He knows who He wants to do it through, and we just need to be in tune.
And I think a lot of the leading of the Spirit has to do with personal contacts we have with people.
Yeah.
It is not it's not that the Holy Spirit gave me this program.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is one-on-one stuff.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is.
The Lord just connects you with people, It's amazing.
Yeah, you just keep...
Well, Carl, thank you for dispensing some of your wisdom. It's great having you today.
I just enjoyed being here.
All right.
I always enjoy being with you.
Yeah. Thanks.
And so
all right.
It's good.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, and hope the program was a blessing to you. And we'll look forward to the next time we're back with Things That Matter.